Catherine Morgan's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She stood alone in the bridal suite at Rosewood Estate, staring at her reflection in the floor-length mirror. The woman looking back wore a dress that cost more than most people's cars. Vera Wang. Ivory silk that caught the afternoon light streaming through the French windows. 300 guests waited in the garden below, their murmurs drifting up through the tent fabric like distant thunder. Everything was perfect. Catherine picked up the champagne flute from the vanity. The glass was cold against her palm. She'd barely touched it. Through the window she could see the ceremony arch draped in white roses, the string quartet tuning their instruments, the rows of chairs filled with San Francisco's elite. Her father stood near the entrance checking his watch. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dan Reeves, "Good luck today." She stared at the words. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to write something, anything. Instead, she locked the screen and set it down. The makeup artist appeared in the doorway. 5 minutes, Ms. Morgan. Catherine nodded. The woman stepped closer, dabbed at her cheek with a tissue. "You're crying." "Allergies," Catherine said automatically. The lie tasted familiar. She'd been lying for 18 months. To Tristan, to her board, to herself. Rain started outside. Light at first, then harder. Drops streaked the windows like tears the glass couldn't hold back. Catherine watched the guests shifting uncomfortably, some opening umbrellas. The weather forecast had promised sunshine. She picked up her veil. It caught on the empty chair beside the mirror, the one meant for her mother's purse. The delicate lace tore slightly at the edge. Catherine stared at the small rip, then at the chair. Empty. Like everything else in this perfectly staged life. "Ready, sweetheart?" Her father stood in the doorway, arm extended. Catherine looked past him to the garden. Tristan waited at the altar in his Tom Ford tuxedo, smiling at guests, checking his Patek Philippe. The same watch he'd worn during their first meeting when she'd pitched her AI platform and he'd barely looked up from his laptop. Her breath hitched. She saw it then. Not the future she'd planned, but the truth she'd been running from. This wedding wasn't about love. It was about optics, strategic alignment. A merger dressed up as matrimony. "Daddy," she whispered. "I've been ready my whole life." He smiled, for the wrong things. She stepped back. Her father's face changed. "Catherine, what are you? I'm sorry." She lifted her veil off, set it on the empty chair. Then she walked past him through the back corridor, her heels clicking against marble. Behind her, she heard him calling her name. She didn't stop. The rain intensified as she pushed through the service exit. Within seconds, her dress was soaked, mascara streaming down her face. A taxi idled near the service road. The driver looked startled as she climbed in wedding dress and all. "Where to?" Catherine pulled out her phone. Found Dan's contact. Stared at his address in Seattle. "The airport," she said, "as fast as you can." Have you ever walked away from something that looked perfect on paper but felt completely wrong? Drop a comment below. And if you want to see what happens when Catherine shows up at Dan's door in a soaked wedding dress, hit that subscribe button now. 3 hours and 47 minutes later, Catherine stood on a doorstep in Seattle's Queen Anne neighborhood. Rain poured down, soaking through what remained of her wedding dress. Mascara streaked her cheeks. Her hair hung in wet tangles. The house was a modest craftsman, warm light glowing through the windows. She could see shadows moving inside. A child's laugh filtered through the door. Catherine raised her hand. Hesitated. What was she doing? Dan Reeves was her employee, her creative director, a man who'd never shown the slightest interest beyond professional courtesy. She was about to destroy his evening, maybe his life, with feelings he'd never asked for. She knocked anyway. Footsteps. The door opened. Dan stood there in a worn Seahawks hoodie and jeans, reading glasses perched on his nose. He froze, eyes widening, as he took in the sight of his CEO standing on his porch in a wedding dress at 8:30 on a Saturday night. Kat. His voice cracked on her name. Behind him, a little girl peered around his legs. 7 years old, dark curls clutching a stuffed rabbit. Her eyes went huge. "Daddy, there's a princess." "Lily, go back to your book, sweetheart." "But she's all wet." Catherine knelt down, bringing herself to the child's eye level. Up close, she could see Dan's features in the girl's face. The same warm brown eyes, the same slight dimple in the left cheek. "Not a princess," Catherine said, her voice gentler than she'd heard it in months. "More like a pumpkin who missed midnight." Lily giggled. Dan's hand tightened on the doorframe. "Jesus, Kat, come inside. You're soaking." "I need to say this first." He stared at her. Rain drummed the porch roof. Water dripped from her hair onto the welcome mat. "I left him," she said. "Tristan, at the altar, 200 people watching. I just walked out." "Holy, I've been lying to myself for 2 years." The words came faster now, like she'd been holding them behind a dam. "About what I wanted. Who I wanted. I kept telling myself I could make it work, that love wasn't supposed to feel easy, that marriage was about partnership and respect and shared goals." Dan opened his mouth. She kept going. "But then I was standing there in that bridal suite and all I could think about was you. The way you stayed up all night to help the interns finish their presentation last month. How you never use Emma's name, Lily's mother, to get sympathy or special treatment. How you look at your daughter like she's the only thing in the world that matters. Kat, I couldn't marry someone I didn't trust. Someone who sees me as an acquisition opportunity instead of a person." Lily tugged Dan's sleeve. "Daddy, she's shivering." He stepped back, pulled the door wider. "Inside, now, before you catch pneumonia." Catherine followed him in. The house smelled like vanilla and old books. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. A half-finished puzzle sat on the coffee table. It was the most lived-in space she'd seen in years. Dan disappeared, returned with a towel and a blanket. "Bathroom's down the hall if you want to. I don't know, not be in a wedding dress. I don't have anything else." "Right, of course." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she recognized from stressful client meetings. "I'll find something. Lily, can you show Ms. Morgan where the bathroom is?" The little girl took Catherine's hand without hesitation. Her palm was small and warm. "You have pretty eyes, even with all the black stuff running down." "Thank you. My mommy had pretty eyes too. She's in heaven now." Catherine's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "It's okay. Daddy says she's watching over us." Lily pushed open the bathroom door. "He cries sometimes when he thinks I'm asleep. Do you cry?" "More than I probably should. Grown-ups cry a lot." Lily said this like she was sharing a profound secret. They just pretend they don't. After the child left, Catherine stared at herself in the mirror. Her mascara had created dark rivers down her cheeks. Her lipstick was gone. The perfect updo had collapsed into a mess of wet waves. She looked nothing like the polished CEO who'd graced the cover of Forbes last year. She looked real. Dan knocked. "I found some sweatpants and a t-shirt. They'll be big, but thank you." She changed quickly. The clothes smelled like laundry detergent and something distinctly Dan. Clean, uncomplicated. When she emerged, he was making coffee in the kitchen. Lily sat at the table coloring. "Decaf, okay, it's late." "Perfect." He poured 2 mugs, slid one across the counter. His hand shook slightly. Catherine wrapped her fingers around the ceramic, felt the heat seep into her palms. Through the window above the sink, rain continued to fall. The glass reflected her distorted image back at her. "I should explain, she started. "You don't owe me an explanation." "I think I do. I just blew up my wedding and showed up at your house unannounced." Dan pulled out the chair across from her, not the one at the head of the table. That one sat empty, and Catherine noticed how his eyes skipped over it automatically, a habit formed by absence. "You've never even looked at me," he said quietly. Not the way you're looking at me now. I couldn't afford to. Because I work for you. Because I was terrified of what it meant." Catherine stared into her coffee. "Women like me don't get to have doubts, Dan. We don't get to want things that don't make sense on a spreadsheet. Every decision has to be strategic. Every relationship has to serve a purpose. Is that what I am? A purpose? You're the first honest thing I've wanted in my entire life." The words hung between them. Lily hummed softly, coloring what looked like a family of 3 holding hands. Catherine couldn't stop staring at the drawing. "How long?" Dan asked. 2 years, since the company retreat in Portland." His eyebrows rose. "The one where I spilled coffee on myself during your keynote. The one where you stayed up until 3 a.m. helping those kids from the marketing internship program finish their pitch deck. Everyone else was at the hotel bar. You chose kindness over networking." "I was just being decent." "Exactly." Catherine met his eyes. "You're everything Tristan isn't. Real, genuine. You don't want anything from me except for me to be good at my job." "That's not entirely true anymore." Her breath caught. "I noticed you," Dan continued. "How could I not? But you were my boss. You were engaged. You were so far out of my league it was laughable." "I am not out of your league. You own the company Cat. I'm a woman who just destroyed her own wedding because she couldn't stop thinking about her creative director." Lily looked up from her coloring. "Are you going to kiss in movies people always kiss after they say nice things?" Dan's face flushed. "Lily, that's not—" "It's okay, Daddy. I like her." Catherine felt something crack open in her chest. "I like you too." Her phone buzzed, then again, and again. She pulled it out. 17 missed calls from Tristan. 43 text messages. She scrolled through them, watching his tone shift from concerned to angry to threatening. The last one made her stomach drop. "I know where you went. Check your email." She opened her email. The subject line read, "Board emergency session Monday 9 a.m. Dan leaned over, read the screen. Shit. He's calling for my resignation. Can he do that? His family invested $20 million in our last funding round. He has board allies. Catherine's hands started shaking again. I've handed him everything he needs. Unstable CEO, poor judgment. Abandoning professional responsibilities for personal drama. You exposed his fraud. What? Last week, you told me you found irregularities in the merger documents. Catherine had almost forgotten. In the chaos of the wedding, the discovery had slipped her mind. She'd been so focused on getting through the ceremony, on maintaining appearances, that she'd filed the information away to deal with later. The due diligence. She set down her phone. His company's financials. The projected synergies were inflated by at least 40%. He was setting us up for a hostile takeover. Then you have leverage. Maybe. Catherine rubbed her temples. Or maybe it looks like I'm making excuses. Convenient timing, discovering fraud right after I jilt him at the altar. Lily yawned. Dan glanced at the clock on the microwave. Past someone's bedtime. But I want to stay up with the princess. Not a princess, remember, and princesses need sleep too. He scooped his daughter into his arms. She wrapped herself around him like a koala, the stuffed rabbit dangling from one hand. Will you be here in the morning? Catherine looked at Dan. He looked back, a question in his eyes. I don't know, sweetheart, Catherine said honestly. After Dan disappeared down the hallway, Catherine wandered to the living room. More drawings on the walls. Lily's school photos arranged chronologically, and on the mantel a single-framed picture Dan with a woman who had Lily's eyes and a smile that reached all the way to her soul. Emma, the wife he'd lost to cancer 3 years ago. The empty chair at the dinner table suddenly made sense. Catherine picked up one of Lily's drawings from the coffee table. 3 stick figures holding hands. One tall, one medium, one small. The medium figure wore what looked like a white dress. At the top, in careful crayon letters, "My family." She drew that 3 weeks ago. Catherine jumped. Dan stood in the doorway watching her. "I told her it was just pretend." He continued moving closer. "That sometimes we draw things we wish for, not things that are real." What did she say? That wishes can come true if you're brave enough. Catherine set the drawing down carefully. She's wise for 7. She's had to grow up fast. Dan sat on the couch, patted the cushion beside him. Catherine sat, leaving space between them. "After Emma died, I thought I was done. That I'd had my chance at love, and that was it. One and done. You don't have to. I want to." He turned to face her. "You're not the only one who's been lying, Kat. I told myself my feelings for you were just admiration, professional respect. But then you'd laugh at something in a meeting, really laugh, not that corporate smile you use for clients, and I'd forget what I was saying. I never noticed. You weren't supposed to. I got good at hiding it." He reached out, tucked a strand of still damp hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her cheek. "But when you showed up tonight in that dress saying those things, I can't pretend anymore either." The space between them dissolved. Catherine didn't know who moved first. Their lips met, gentle and questioning. Not the passionate collision of romance novels, but something quieter, more profound. A conversation without words. When they pulled apart, Dan rested his forehead against hers. "This is crazy," he whispered. "Completely. You could lose your company. I know. I could lose my job. I know that too. And we're still doing this." Catherine pulled back, looked him in the eye. "I spent 18 months engaged to someone I didn't love because it made sense on paper. I'm done making sense." They sat like that, foreheads touching, breathing the same air until Catherine's phone shattered the moment with another buzz. She glanced at the screen. Her mother. "How could you embarrass us like this?" Her father. "Call me, now." Margaret Chen, board chair. "We need to talk before Monday." "I should go," Catherine said, even as everything in her wanted to stay. "Where? Hotel, I guess. I can't exactly go home to the apartment, Tristan and I." "The apartment?" "Stay here, guest room, no expectations." "Dan, it's late. You're exhausted. And I have a feeling tomorrow's going to be hell for both of us." He stood, offered his hand. "Let me help, just for tonight." Catherine took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. The guest room was small but comfortable. Clean sheets, a reading lamp, a window that looked out over the rain-soaked street. Dan brought her a new toothbrush, still in the package, and a glass of water. Anything else you need. Everything Catherine thought. Time. Courage. A way to make this work that didn't destroy both their lives. "This is perfect," she said instead. "Thank you." He hesitated in the doorway. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you came." After he left, Catherine lay in the unfamiliar bed listening to rain against the window. Her phone continued to buzz with increasingly frantic messages. She turned it off. Just for tonight, she wanted to exist in this small pocket of peace before the storm hit. Monday arrived faster than either of them wanted. Catherine borrowed more of Dan's clothes for the drive to Vertex Technologies' downtown Seattle headquarters. Dark jeans, a button-down shirt, her ruined heels from the wedding. Not exactly board meeting attire, but she'd left her power suits in the apartment she couldn't face returning to. Dan drove. Neither of them spoke much. At a red light, he reached over and squeezed her hand. Whatever happens, I know. The Vertex building rose 40 stories, all glass and steel. Catherine had designed it herself 5 years ago, right after the Series C funding. She'd wanted transparency, openness. Now, climbing out of Dan's modest Subaru in the visitor parking, she felt like she was approaching a fortress designed to keep her out. Security met her in the lobby. Not the usual friendly wave. 2 guards, stone-faced. "Miss Morgan, the board is waiting. Conference room A." "I know where the conference room is, Marcus. I picked out the furniture. We're to escort you directly." So it was like that. Dan tried to follow. The second guard stepped in front of him. "Employees only, sir. I am an employee. Not for this meeting." Catherine touched Dan's arm. "It's okay. Wait in your office. Cat, I'll be fine." She wasn't fine. Conference room A held 12 board members seated around a table she'd imported from Denmark. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Elliott Bay. On a clear day, you could see the Olympics. Today, rain obscured everything beyond the nearest buildings. Tristan Ashford's face filled the screen at the head of the table, calling in from San Francisco. He looked immaculate. Pressed suit, perfect hair, no sign of a man who'd been left at the altar 36 hours ago. Margaret Chen, yet sat at Catherine's right hand, expression neutral. That wasn't good. Margaret had mentored Catherine since the company's founding. If she'd turned, "Ms. Morgan," the board secretary's voice was crisp, "please sit." Catherine remained standing. "I'd rather hear the accusations first." Tom Harris, the CFO, cleared his throat. He'd always been Tristan's ally, brought in during the funding round as a condition of the investment. Serious concerns had been raised about your judgment and fitness to continue as CEO. "By whom? By me." Tristan's voice came through crystal clear. "Catherine, I'm trying to protect you here. The stress you've been under, the erratic behavior. This isn't you, isn't it? Leaving your wedding, disappearing for 2 days. We're concerned about your mental state." "My mental state is fine, Tristan." "Is it because witnesses place you at the home of Daniel Reeves Saturday night? Your direct report wearing his clothes Sunday morning?" The room went silent. Catherine felt 12 pairs of eyes on her. "Are you having me followed?" "I'm protecting the company's interests. An inappropriate relationship between CEO and subordinate creates massive liability." "There's no inappropriate relationship." "Then how do you explain the photographs?" A tablet slid across the table. Catherine looked down. Security camera footage from Dan's street. Her arriving in the wedding dress, leaving the next morning. The timestamp was damning. Margaret finally spoke. "Catherine, I think we need to discuss a temporary leave of absence, just until things settle." "Things won't settle, Margaret. That's the point." Catherine placed both palms on the table, leaned forward. "Tristan isn't concerned about my mental health or the company's reputation. He's concerned that I discovered what he's really been planning." "Here we go." Tristan's sigh was theatrical. "The conspiracy theories. Show them, Tom." The CFO shifted uncomfortably. "Show them what? The merger documents, the real projections versus what Tristan's team provided." "I don't know what you're—" "Don't lie for him." Catherine's voice cut like glass. "You're too good an accountant not to have noticed. The inflated revenue forecasts, the hidden debt structures, the poison pill clauses buried in the fine print." She pulled a folder from her bag, slapped it on the table. Inside were printouts she'd made the week before, when she'd finally taken the time to dig into the numbers that hadn't added up. Tristan's company is over-leveraged by $300 million. The merger wasn't about synergy. It was about using Vertex's balance sheet to cover his losses. and if it failed, the clauses would give Ashford Capital controlling interest. That's defamatory, Tristan said, but his voice had changed, less confident. It's factual. I have 3 independent accounting firms ready to verify every number. Margaret picked up the folder, started reading. Her expression shifted. Tom, did you review these documents? The CFO said nothing. Tom, there may have been some optimistic projections. Optimistic? Catherine laughed, but there was no humor in it. He was planning a hostile takeover. The wedding, the relationship, all of it was strategic. Find the vulnerability, exploit it. She pulled out her phone, brought up an email, projected it onto the screen. Tristan's face went pale. The message was from him to Tom Harris, dated 6 weeks before the proposal. She's smart, but emotional about the company. Personal attachment is the weakness. Engagement should provide sufficient access to board dynamics. The room erupted. Board members talking over each other. Margaret's face had gone from neutral to furious. Even Tom Harris looked sick. That's out of context, Tristan said, but he was shouting now, defensive. Really? What's the context that makes this acceptable? You're unstable, Catherine. Everyone can see it. This paranoid narrative. Stop. Margaret's voice cut through the chaos. She stood, and the room fell silent. I've served on this board for 4 years. I've watched Catherine build Vertex from a Series A startup to a market leader. I've never once questioned her judgment. She turned to face Tristan's image on the screen. But I'm questioning yours. This email alone is grounds for investigation, combined with these financial discrepancies. She looked around the table. I move that we suspend all merger negotiations pending a full forensic audit, and that we retain Catherine as CEO with our full support. Seconded, said another board member. All in favor. 10 hands rose. Only Tom Harris abstained. Tristan's connection suddenly dropped. Catherine's knees went weak. She gripped the table to stay upright. Margaret walked over, put a hand on her shoulder. You should have come to me first. I was going to. After the wedding, I thought I could handle it quietly. Instead, you blew up your life spectacularly. The older woman's expression softened. But sometimes that's what integrity requires. After the board members filed out, Catherine stood alone in the conference room. Through the window, the rain had stopped. Weak sunlight broke through the clouds, turning the wet glass into a prism. Her phone buzzed. Dan. You still employed? She smiled despite everything. Somehow. Good. Lily wants to know if you're coming for dinner. Catherine looked out at the city. Her city. The company she'd built. The life she'd almost traded for something that looked right on paper. I'll be there, she typed back. Then she walked out of the conference room past the security guards who now nodded respectfully and took the elevator down to the creative floor. Dan's office door was open. He looked up as she appeared, relief flooding his features. Hey yourself. So, it went okay. Better than okay. Tristan's out, the merger's dead, and apparently I'm still CEO. That's incredible. Catherine leaned against the doorframe. Around them, employees pretended not to stare. Office gossip traveled faster than their fiber optic internet. It's going to be complicated, she said. Us, the company, the optics. Probably. People will talk. They already are. I might have just made both our lives significantly harder. Dan stood crossed to where she stood, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him, but not touching. Not here. Not yet. You chose the truth over convenience, he said quietly. That's never the easy path, but it's always the right one. Catherine felt something in her chest unknot. For the first time in 2 years, maybe longer, she could breathe all the way in. Dinner tonight? She asked. Lily's making spaghetti. Well, I'm making spaghetti. She's making a mess. Sounds perfect. As Catherine walked back to her office, she passed a window overlooking the city. Her reflection stared back, no longer distorted or hidden behind glass walls. Just her. Real and flawed and finally honest. Her phone buzzed one more time. Her mother. "We need to talk about what you've done to this family." Catherine deleted the message. Some conversations could wait, some might never happen, and that was okay too. She had dinner plans with a man who saw her, really saw her, and his daughter who drew wishes in crayon and believed they could come true. For now, that was more than enough. The whispers started Tuesday morning. Catherine arrived at Vertex at 7:30 earlier than usual, hoping to avoid the stairs. It didn't work. Employees fell silent as she passed conversations dying mid-sentence. In the break room, someone had left a tabloid on the counter. Tech CEO ditches billionaire groom for employee. The photo was grainy but recognizable. Her in Dan's Seahawks hoodie, leaving his house Sunday morning. She grabbed the paper, dropped it in the recycling, and poured coffee she didn't want. Ignore them. Margaret appeared beside her, fixing her own cup. The board chair looked tired, lines around her eyes that Catherine hadn't noticed before. Hard to ignore when it's everywhere. Give it a week, something else will be scandalous. Margaret added cream, stirred slowly. Although I should warn you, Tristan's family pulled their investment. $20 million effective immediately. Catherine's hand stilled. Can they do that? Their lawyers found a morality clause, vague enough to be useful. Margaret met her eyes. The stock's going to drop, probably 10-15%, maybe more. How bad? We'll survive, but there'll be layoffs, budget cuts, angry shareholders. Catherine set down her mug. This is my fault. This is Tristan being vindictive. There's a difference. Margaret touched her shoulder briefly. Board meeting next Monday. Emergency session. Some members want to discuss leadership changes. They want me out. They want certainty. Show them you can handle this, and they'll back you. Show weakness. She didn't finish. Didn't need to. After Margaret left, Catherine stood alone in the break room. Through the window, Seattle stretched gray and drizzling. The rain never really stopped here. Just paused between downpours. Her phone buzzed. Dan. Client presentation at 2. Wish me luck. She replied, "You've got this," and she walked to her office, closed the door, and prepared for the storm. Dan's presentation was scheduled for conference room C. The client was Patterson Industries, a manufacturing giant considering a full rebrand. 6 months of pitches, revisions, and late nights had led to this moment. He arrived at 1:45. The room was already set up. His laptop connected to the projector, notes arranged on the table. He'd rehearsed this pitch 17 times. Tom Harris walked in at 1:50. The CFO hadn't spoken to Dan since the board meeting. Now he smiled cold and corporate. "Big day, Reeves. We're ready." "I'm sure you are." Harris took a seat in the back. Wouldn't want anything to go wrong. The clients arrived at 2. 3 executives, including Patterson's CEO. Dan shook hands, made small talk, then dimmed the lights and started the presentation. The first slide appeared. Wrong logo, wrong tagline, wrong everything. Dan's stomach dropped. "I apologize. Technical issue. Give me 1 second." He clicked to the next slide. A photo of him and Catherine leaving Vertex together last week, blown up to fill the screen. The timestamp visible. Her hand on his arm. The room went silent. "That's not..." Dan fumbled with his laptop. "Someone accessed my files." He pulled up the original presentation on his computer screen. Everything was there. Perfect. but the version on the projector kept showing altered slides, fake data, embarrassing images, errors that made him look incompetent. Harris stood. Perhaps if Mr. Reeves spent less time on personal matters and more time on quality control, we wouldn't be wasting Patterson's time. Someone sabotaged this. Dan's voice stayed level, but his hands shook. These aren't my slides. Of course not. Nothing's ever your fault. The Patterson CEO cleared his throat. Maybe we should reschedule. No. Dan disconnected his laptop, pulled up the files from his personal cloud storage, projected them from his phone. Here's the actual presentation, 30 seconds to load. While they waited, he turned to face the room. I've worked at Vertex for 6 years, led campaigns that tripled our client retention and quadrupled revenue. My personal life has never compromised my work. He looked directly at Harris. But apparently, some people would rather sabotage a colleague than let him succeed. The presentation loaded. Dan talked for 40 minutes straight, no notes, every statistic memorized. He'd lived and breathed this campaign. No amount of interference could take that away. When he finished, Patterson's CEO nodded slowly. Impressive. Both the work and the recovery. After the clients left, promising to be in touch, Dan packed his laptop. Harris lingered by the door. That was a mistake, Reeves. Which part? Doing my job well or not, letting you ruin it. Choosing her over your career. I didn't choose anything. Catherine and I are colleagues. Is that what you call it? Harris smiled. Enjoy it while it lasts. She'll throw you under the bus the second it's convenient. Dan waited until the CFO left. Then he sat in the empty conference room staring at his reflection in the black screen of the projector. His hands were still shaking. His phone rang. Catherine. How did it go? Someone replaced my presentation with garbage. Photos of us. Fake data. Silence. Then Harris. Probably. I pulled it off, but barely. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm the one who... He stopped. What was he? They hadn't defined this thing between them, hadn't had time. I knew what I was getting into. Did you? Because I'm not sure I did. Her voice sounded small, tired. Dan closed his eyes. Movie night still on for Friday, he asked. You sure that's a good idea? Lily's been asking about you all week. Drew another picture. This one has you wearing a crown made of stars. Catherine laughed, soft and sad. I'm not royalty, Dan. Tell that to a 7-year-old with a crayon. Friday evening, Catherine stood outside Dan's house holding a bottle of wine and fighting the urge to run. Every headline this week had been worse than the last. The stock had dropped 12%. 3 board members called for her resignation. Her mother left 17 voicemails she hadn't returned. The door opened before she could knock. Lily stood there in pajamas patterned with dinosaurs, grinning. You came, I promised, didn't I? Daddy said you might be too busy being important. Never too busy for you. Inside, the house smelled like butter and tomato sauce. Dan appeared from the kitchen spatula and hand hair mussed. He'd changed from his work clothes into jeans and a faded Pearl Jam t-shirt. Catherine had never seen him look more attractive. Hey yourself. They stared at each other. Lily grabbed Catherine's hand. Come see my room, I cleaned it and everything. The child's bedroom was exactly what Catherine expected. Books everywhere. A telescope by the window. Drawings covering every available surface. And on the wall above the bed a new picture, 3 people holding hands under a night sky. Stars and planets swirling around them. That's us, Lily explained unnecessarily. You, me, and Daddy. I made you a scientist because you're smart. It's beautiful. Do you have kids? The question hit harder than expected. No. Did you want them?" Catherine knelt down to Lily's level. "I used to, but then I got busy with work and everyone told me I had to choose. Career or family, not both. That's dumb. Very dumb. My mommy was a doctor and a mom. She did both until she got sick." Lily touched the drawing gently. "Daddy says she would have liked you." Catherine's throat tightened. "You think so?" "Yeah, because you make him smile different. Not the sad smile, the real one." Dan called from the kitchen. "Pizza's ready." They ate on the living room floor, paper plates balanced on their knees, Frozen playing on the TV for what Dan claimed was the millionth time. Lily sang along to every song slightly off-key but enthusiastic. Catherine found herself mouthing the words too. "You've seen this before," Dan observed. "Maybe once or twice." "Liar, you know all the words to Let It Go. It's a cultural phenomenon, everyone knows the words." Halfway through the movie, Lily fell asleep between them, head on Catherine's lap, feet sprawled across Dan's legs. Catherine froze, afraid to move and wake her. "She does that," Dan whispered. "Uses people as furniture." "I don't mind." They sat in silence watching Anna and Elsa reconcile on screen. Catherine stroked Lily's hair absently. It was soft, baby-fine, curling slightly at the ends. The little girl sighed in her sleep, burrowing closer. "Can I ask you something?" Dan said quietly. "Anything. Do you regret it? Walking away from Tristan, the merger, all of it?" Catherine thought about the question. Really thought. Her stock options were worth 40% less than last week. Half the board wanted her gone. Industry blogs questioned her stability. Her family wasn't speaking to her. "No," she said, "not for a second. Even with everything that's happened, especially with everything that's happened." She looked down at Lily, then at Dan. "I spent 15 years building a company, making something from nothing. I was proud of that, but I never felt, like I mattered, not as a person, just as a CEO, a figurehead. Someone useful." She blinked back tears. "Here with you two, I feel like I matter because of who I am, not what I produce." Dan reached across Lily's sleeping form, took Catherine's hand. His palm was warm, calloused from weekend woodworking. Real. "You've always mattered, Cat." "I'm starting to believe that." After they carried Lily to bed, tucking her in with the stuffed rabbit and a kiss on the forehead, Dan walked Catherine to the door. Rain had started again, gentle against the windows. The sound was soothing now, not ominous. "I should go. Or you could stay." Catherine's breath caught. "Dan, not like that. I just meant, it's late. The guest room's still made up. And honestly, I like having you here. People will talk. They're already talking. It could make things worse, or it could make things better." He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "I'm tired of pretending this isn't happening, Cat. Aren't you?" She was. God, she was so tired of pretending. "One condition," she said. "What? No more hiding. If we do this, we do it honestly. No sneaking around, no secret meetings. I won't let you become collateral damage in my mess. Our mess. We're in this together." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their second kiss was different from the first. Less tentative, more certain. His hand cupped her face thumb, brushing her cheekbone. She gripped his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dan rested his forehead against hers. "Stay. Okay." Catherine woke Saturday morning to the smell of pancakes and the sound of Lily singing off-key in the kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the guest room window. For the first time in weeks, she'd slept through the night. Her phone showed 32 missed calls. Reality crashed back. She scrolled through messages. Her mother, her father, board members, journalists, and one from an unknown number with a Seattle area code. She opened it. "Miss Morgan, we have information about Ashford Capital you'll want to see. Can we meet confidential?" No name. No signature. Catherine stared at the message. It could be a trap, a journalist fishing for a story, or something legitimate. She typed back, "Who is this?" The response came immediately. "Someone who worked for Tristan. Someone he screwed over. The enemy of my enemy." Her finger hovered over the delete button. Then she thought about Harris sabotaging Dan's presentation, about the stock price tanking, about board members calling for her head. Monday, 7 a.m., Vertex lobby. "See you there." Catherine found Dan and Lily in the kitchen. The little girl sat at the table, face covered in syrup, reading a picture book. Dan stood at the stove flipping pancakes with more confidence than his cooking skills probably warranted. "Morning," he said, smiling. "Sleep okay?" "Better than I have in months." "Pancakes, please." Lily looked up. "Can we go to the aquarium today?" All three of us. Dan and Catherine exchanged glances. "Lily, Ms. Morgan probably has work." "Cat," Catherine interrupted. "Call me Cat. And actually, the aquarium sounds perfect." They spent the day watching jellyfish pulse through dark water, touching sea stars in the tide pool exhibit, eating overpriced hot dogs. Lily held both their hands swinging between them. Tourists took photos without realizing they were documenting the personal life of a CEO whose face had been all over the news. Catherine didn't care. In the shark tunnel, standing beneath thousands of gallons of water, Lily pressed her face to the glass. "Do you think sharks get lonely?" "Maybe," Catherine said. "But they're also really good at being sharks." "That's sad, being good at something but lonely." Dan caught Catherine's eye. She looked away, throat tight. That evening, back at Dan's house, Catherine finally called her mother. Catherine Elizabeth Morgan, the full name. Never good. "Hi, Mom. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family?" Catherine walked to the window. Rain streaked the glass, distorting her reflection. "I left a wedding, that's all." "That's all your father's business partners are distancing themselves. The Ashfords are telling everyone you've had a breakdown. I had to cancel my book club because I couldn't face the questions." "I'm sorry your book club is uncomfortable." "Don't be glib. This is serious. Your reputation, your company, your entire future is at stake." "I know." "Then come home. Apologize to Tristan. We can spin this as cold feet pre-wedding jitters. His family might forgive." "No." Silence. Catherine had never said no to her mother, not like that. Flat and final. "Excuse me. I'm not apologizing, I'm not going back. Tristan was using me, Mom, using the company. The whole relationship was strategic." "All relationships are strategic, Catherine. Your father and I didn't build our life on romance. We built it on respect, shared goals, practicality." "And are you happy?" More silence. "Happiness is a luxury," her mother said finally. "Success is what matters." "I used to believe that." Catherine pressed her palm against the window. The glass was cold. "I don't anymore. Because of this employee, this widower with a child. His name is Dan. And yes, because of him. Because of Lily. Because they see me as a person, not an asset." "You're being naive." "Maybe. Or maybe I'm being honest for the first time in my life. If you pursue this, you'll lose everything." "I already lost everything, Mom. The difference is now I have a chance to build something real." Her mother's voice turned icy. "Don't come crying to me when it falls apart." "I won't." The line went dead. Catherine stood there, phone in hand, feeling lighter and heavier simultaneously. Behind her, Dan appeared in the doorway. "You okay? My mother thinks I'm having a breakdown." "Are you?" Catherine considered. "Maybe, but it's the good kind. The kind where everything fake breaks so something real can grow." He crossed the room, wrapped his arms around her from behind. They stood like that, looking out at the rain-soaked street, not speaking, just being. Catherine's phone buzzed. Margaret. "Board meeting moved to Thursday, 10 a.m. Be ready." Monday morning, Catherine arrived at Vertex at 6:45. The lobby was empty except for security and the night cleaning crew. She bought coffee from the first-floor cafe, then sat by the windows to wait. At 7 exactly, a woman appeared. Mid-30s, wearing a business suit and anxious expression. She scanned the lobby, spotted Catherine, walked over. "Miss Morgan, call me Kat, and you are Sarah Chen. I worked in Ashford Capital's accounting department until last month." She sat, pulled out a tablet. "What I'm about to show you could get me sued into oblivion." "Then why show me?" "Because Tristan destroyed my career when I questioned his numbers. Filed a false complaint, got me blacklisted." Sarah's jaw tightened. "I have nothing left to lose, but you do, and you deserve the truth." She turned the tablet around. The documents were damning. Emails between Tristan and Tom Harris dating back 18 months. Plans to inflate Vertex's valuation, push through the merger, then systematically strip assets. Financial projections that were pure fiction, and messages about Catherine herself. Target is emotionally isolated, father-figure complex, needs validation. Engagement will provide leverage. Catherine's hands shook as she scrolled through months of manipulation laid out in clinical detail. "There's more," Sarah said quietly. "Evidence of insider trading, market manipulation, fraud that could bring federal charges. Why give this to me? Because you can stop him. You have platform resources, credibility." Sarah leaned forward. "But you need to act fast. Tristan's lawyers are burying everything. In 2 weeks, this evidence disappears." Catherine stared at the documents. With these, she could destroy Tristan. Save her company. Vindicate herself completely. The board would have no choice but to support her. "Can I keep these? Everything's on this drive." Sarah handed over a thumb drive. "Encrypted. Password is your company's founding date." After Sarah left, Catherine sat in the empty lobby holding the drive. Outside, Seattle woke up. Office workers hurrying through rain. Buses rumbling past. The city she'd claimed as her own when she moved here 8 years ago, young and hungry and certain. She'd been so certain of everything back then. Her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Catherine Morgan," a man's voice, professional. "This is David Park from the Seattle Times. I'm running a story about your relationship with Daniel Reeves and the impact on Vertex Technologies. Would you like to comment?" "No comment. Sources say the board is planning to force your resignation, that your judgment has been compromised by personal entanglements. Care to respond?" Catherine hung up. The calls kept coming. Forbes, TechCrunch, The Wall Street Journal. By 9 a.m. her phone was useless. She turned it off and went to find Dan. He was in his office, door closed, on a video call with clients. Through the glass wall she could see him gesturing, explaining being brilliant at his job. A job he might lose because of her. Margaret found her watching. "You're in early. Couldn't sleep." "Neither could I." The board chair held 2 cups of coffee, offered one. "Thursday's meeting. It's going to be rough." "How rough?" 6 board members want you out. 5 are undecided. 1 is solidly in your corner. You, me. Margaret sipped her coffee. "But I'm not enough. You need to give them a reason to keep you. Something concrete, not just promises of better judgment." Catherine thought about the thumb drive in her pocket. The evidence that could save everything. What if I had proof of Tristan's fraud, his manipulation, everything? Margaret's eyes sharpened. Do you? Maybe. Catherine. I need to think about it. Thursday morning arrived too fast. Catherine dressed carefully. Navy suit, white blouse, minimal jewelry. Armor disguised as business casual. She'd barely slept the thumb drive sitting on her nightstand like a live grenade. Dan had offered to come to the office early. She'd said no. This was hers to handle. The boardroom filled at 9:45. 12 members, all in their designated seats. Tom Harris sat smugly beside his allies. Margaret held the center expression neutral. The windows overlooked Elliott Bay gray and choppy under wind-driven rain. At 10, Margaret called the meeting to order. We're here to discuss leadership of Vertex Technologies, specifically concerns about Miss Morgan's continued fitness as CEO. She looked at Catherine. The floor is yours. Catherine stood. 12 pairs of eyes tracked her movement. She thought about Sarah Chen blacklisted and desperate. About Dan sabotaged in his own workplace. About Lily drawing families in crayon. About the woman who'd run from her wedding because she couldn't fake it anymore. I made mistakes, she said. I let my personal life become public in ways that hurt this company. I should have handled my engagement with Tristan more privately. Should have seen the warning signs earlier. Should have protected all of you from this chaos. She paused, pulled the thumb drive from her pocket. This contains evidence of Tristan Ashford's fraud. His plans to destroy Vertex, his manipulation of our merger, our numbers, our trust. With this, I can prove everything. Vindicate myself. Make him pay. Tom Harris went pale. Several board members leaned forward. But, Catherine continued, this evidence was obtained by a whistleblower who trusted me to use it responsibly. Someone who's already lost their career fighting Tristan. If I use this, I expose them to lawsuits, retaliation, possibly criminal charges. She set the drive on the table. I won't do that. I won't protect myself by destroying someone else who was brave enough to tell the truth. Catherine, Margaret said carefully. Without this evidence, I know. You'll probably vote to remove me, and maybe that's right. Maybe I'm not fit to lead if my judgment is this clouded by principle. She looked around the room. But I'd rather lose my position than lose my integrity. Tom Harris stood. This is absurd. You're telling us you have proof but won't show it convenient. Sit down, Tom. Margaret's voice cut like ice. She's manipulating. I said, sit. The CFO sat. Margaret walked to where Catherine had placed the thumb drive. Picked it up, examined it. 30 years ago, Margaret said quietly, I was offered a promotion. VP of Engineering at a Fortune 500, my dream job. There was one condition. I had to fire 3 people who'd blown the whistle on safety violations, people who were right, people who'd trusted me. She set the drive back down. I took the job, I fired them, and I've regretted it every day since. She looked around the table. I watched those 3 people lose everything while I climbed the ladder. Built my reputation on their sacrifice. It's why I've never been able to sleep well. Why I mentor young women trying to make up for it. She turned to Catherine. This what you're doing right now, this is leadership, not protecting yourself at others' expense, not taking the easy path. Margaret looked at the other board members. I move that we not only retain Catherine as CEO, but expand her authority to restructure as she sees fit, including full audit powers over all departments. The implication was clear. Tom Harris would be gone. Seconded, said another board member. The vote was 8-4. Catherine kept her job. After the room cleared, Margaret and Catherine stood alone by the windows. Rain hammered the glass. The motif Catherine had stopped noticing. Water washing away facades, leaving only truth. "Thank you," Catherine said. "Don't thank me. You earned it." Margaret handed back the thumb drive. "But you should still use this, not to protect yourself, to stop him from hurting anyone else." "I will, on my terms, protecting the source." "Good." Margaret moved toward the door, paused. "That man, Dan, he's good for you. I can see it. The board just voted to keep you. They'll adjust." A slight smile. "Besides, half of them are having affairs with their assistants. They're hardly in a position to judge." After Margaret left, Catherine stood at the window. Below, Seattle bustled, cars and people and life continuing despite her personal drama. The city didn't care about her heartbreak or triumph. It just kept moving. Her phone buzzed. Dan. "Still employed?" She smiled. "Somehow. Lily wants to know if you're free for dinner. We're making spaghetti. She's making spaghetti. I'm making spaghetti. She's making a mess. Important distinction." Catherine looked at her calendar. 3 meetings this afternoon. Calls with investors. A crisis management session with PR. The responsible thing would be to work late. Fix everything. Prove she could handle both company and personal life. Instead, she typed, "I'll be there at 6. Because that was the thing about choosing truth over convenience. You had to keep choosing it. Every day. Every decision. Even the small ones. Especially the small ones. 3 months later, Catherine stood in her corner office watching snowfall over Seattle. The first of the season. Fat flakes drifting past the 40th floor, turning the city soft and quiet. Her reflection in the window looked different now. Same face, same professional blazer, but something had shifted in her eyes. Less guarded. More present. Behind her, the door opened without knocking. Only one person did that anymore. "You're coming tonight, right?" Margaret stepped in tablet under her arm. "The holiday party. Please tell me you're coming." "Do I have a choice?" "No. It's mandatory. Board's orders." Margaret smiled. "Also, I heard a rumor that a certain creative director is bringing his daughter." Catherine turned from the window. "Lily's coming. Apparently, she threatened to boycott Christmas if she couldn't see the fancy building where her dad works." Dan caved. 3 months of careful navigation. Professional boundaries at work, no public displays. Separate cars to company events. They'd been cautious. Deliberate. Building something real while the world watched for them to fail. It had been the longest, best 3 months of Catherine's life. "I'll be there," she said. The party started at 7. Catherine changed in her office, swapping the blazer for a silk blouse the color of deep water. Nothing too formal. Nothing that screamed trying too hard. By 7:15, the rooftop garden was packed. Vertex's entire staff, plus board members and key investors. White lights strung between planters. A bar serving craft cocktails. The Space Needle visible in the distance lit up against the dark sky. Snow fell gently, melting on contact with warm skin. Catherine made the rounds, talked quarterly projections with investors. Laughed at the VP of Sales's terrible jokes. Accepted compliments on the stock price, which had climbed back to pre-scandal levels after news broke of Ashford Capital's federal investigation. She didn't see Dan anywhere. Then Lily appeared, weaving through the crowd in a red velvet dress hair in elaborate braids. She spotted Catherine and ran. Catherine knelt, caught the little girl in a hug. "Look at you. So fancy. Daddy did my hair. It took forever." Lily pulled back, examined Catherine's face seriously. You look pretty, like a mermaid. Mermaids are pretty. The best kind of pretty, magic pretty. Dan emerged from the crowd carrying 2 cups of hot chocolate. He'd traded his usual casual wear for dark slacks and a sweater that made his eyes look impossibly warm. When he saw Catherine, his expression did something that made her forget they were in public. Hey yourself. They stood there 3 feet apart, drinking each other in while Lily commandeered both hot chocolates. This is weird, right? Dan said quietly. Seeing you here, like 2 worlds colliding. Good weird or bad weird? Definitely good. Lily tugged Catherine's hand. Can you show me your office? Daddy says you have a big desk and windows everywhere. I don't know if that's... Please, I want to see where you work, where you do important things. Catherine glanced at Dan. He shrugged, smiled. She's been asking all week. They took the elevator down to the executive floor. Lily pressed her nose to the glass walls, watching the city shrink below them. Catherine's office was dark, just the ambient light from downtown filtering through the windows. Whoa. Lily walked straight to the glass, placed both palms against it. You can see everything. Most days, yeah. Do you get lonely up here by yourself? Catherine joined her at the window. Their reflections overlaid the city lights. Sometimes, less lately. Because of Daddy. Because of both of you. Lily turned, looked up at her with those serious brown eyes. Are you going to be my mom? Catherine's breath caught. Dan moved closer but didn't intervene, letting his daughter ask the question she'd been holding. Would you want that? Catherine asked carefully. I already draw you that way, in all my pictures. Lily pulled a folded paper from her dress pocket. See, the drawing showed 3 figures on a rooftop, snow falling around them. Stars overhead, the tallest figure kneeling holding something small, the middle figure smiling, the smallest figure jumping with arms raised. Catherine's hands shook as she held the paper. When did you draw this? Last week. It's what's going to happen. I can feel it. Dan cleared his throat. Lily, sweetheart, maybe we should... It's okay, Daddy. She knows. Lily looked at Catherine. Right, you know. And somehow, impossibly, Catherine did know, had known since that first movie night, falling asleep between them on the couch. Since Lily called her mom by accident 2 weeks ago, then burst into tears, terrified she'd messed everything up. Since Dan held her through a panic attack about the board meeting, steady and certain. She knew. Yeah, Catherine whispered. I know. Lily grinned, then skipped to the door. I'm going to get more hot chocolate. You two should talk. After she left, Catherine and Dan stood in the semi-darkness. Snow continued falling outside. The city blazed below them, and between them, possibility hummed like electricity. She's not subtle, Dan said. Never has been. I didn't put her up to that. I know. He moved closer. Close enough that Catherine could smell his cologne, see the nervous pulse in his throat. But for the record, I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Catherine's heart stopped. I'm not offering a merger, Dan said quietly, or synergy, or strategic partnership. He opened the box, inside a simple ring, white gold single stone, nothing ostentatious. Just us, if you want that. Dan, I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring things out. I know there are 1,000 reasons to wait. He took her hand. But I spent 3 years after Emma died thinking I'd had my shot. One chance at love. Done. And then you showed up in a wedding dress at 9 p.m. in the rain, and I realized I was wrong. Love isn't limited. It's not a one-time offer. Catherine couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. could only stare at this man who saw her, really saw her, and chose her anyway. "You don't have to answer now," Dan continued. "You don't have to answer ever. I just needed you to know that I'm in this, completely, for however long you'll have me." "Yes." "What, yes?" Catherine laughed through tears. "Did you actually think I'd say anything else? I thought you might need time to think about—" She kissed him. Right there in her corner office, the one she'd designed to keep people at a distance, surrounded by glass walls that no longer felt like barriers. His arms wrapped around her waist, lifting her slightly. The ring box pressed between them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dan rested his forehead against hers. "We should probably get back to the party." "Probably." Neither of them moved. "Your board's going to lose their minds." "Let them." He slipped the ring onto her finger. Perfect fit. Like he'd measured while she slept, which he probably had. Catherine held up her hand, watching light catch the stone. "It's beautiful." "It was Emma's grandmother's. She made me promise before she died that I'd find someone else. Someone who made Lily happy." His voice cracked. "She would have loved you, Kat. The real you, not the CEO version. I wish I could have met her. She would have said you were too good for me." Smart woman. They took the elevator back up. The rooftop was more crowded now, music playing, people dancing. Lily spotted them immediately and came running. "Did you ask? Did she say yes? Let me see the ring." Catherine held out her hand. Lily squealed loud enough that nearby conversations stopped. Heads turned. Catherine felt the moment the news rippled through the crowd. Her CEO, their creative director, engaged. Margaret appeared, champagne in hand. She looked at the ring, at Catherine's face, at Dan's protective stance, and smiled. "About damn time. You knew. Please, I've been running interference for months. Why do you think Harris mysteriously got reassigned to the Portland office?" Margaret raised her glass. "Congratulations, both of you." Other employees approached, hesitant at first, then warming, offering congratulations, asking to see the ring, sharing their own engagement stories. The wall between CEO and staff, the one Catherine had built so carefully, crumbled. It felt like freedom. At 8:30, Lily started yawning. Dan checked his watch. Past bedtime. "Can Kat come home with us?" "Lily, please. Just tonight we can watch a movie, and she can sleep in the guest room and make pancakes in the morning." Catherine looked at Dan. He looked back, a question in his eyes. This was the line. Going home together, publicly, no more pretense of separation. If she left with them now, everyone would know. The gossip would start fresh. Her personal life would become company property again. "Let me grab my coat," she said. They walked to the parking garage together, Lily between them, holding both their hands. Snow fell heavier now, accumulating on sidewalks, turning Seattle into something softer than itself. Dan's car was covered in white. He brushed off the windshield while Lily climbed in back, already half asleep. Catherine sat in the passenger seat, watched him work, and felt something settle in her chest. Peace. That's what this was. Finally. The drive to Queen Anne took 20 minutes through snow-slowed traffic. Dan parked in the driveway. The house looked exactly as it had 3 months ago. Same warm lights. Same sense of home. But Catherine was different now. Not a desperate woman in a wedding dress. Not someone running from one life into another. Just herself. Choosing this. Choosing them. Inside, Dan carried Lily straight to bed. She barely woke, mumbled something about mermaids and stars, then curled around her stuffed rabbit. Catherine stood in the doorway, watching Dan tuck the blanket around his daughter with such tenderness it hurt. "She's lucky," Catherine said, "to have you. We're the lucky ones." After Lily was settled, they sat on the couch. No movie, no pretense of activity, just sitting together in the dim light, Dan's arm around her shoulders, Catherine's head on his chest. The Christmas tree in the corner blinked multicolored lights. Outside, snow continued falling. "I used to imagine this," Catherine said. "When I was younger, before business school, before the startup, before I learned that wanting a family made me weak." "Who told you that?" "Everyone. My mother. My first serious boyfriend. Professors who said women in tech had to choose. Board members who suggested kids would distract me." She turned her ring, watching it catch the light. "I believed them, convinced myself career was enough. And now I know they were wrong, all of them." She sat up, looked at him directly. "I'm not giving up my career. Vertex matters. But it's not the only thing that matters anymore." "Good." Dan kissed her forehead. "Because Lily's already planning the wedding. She has a binder. She's 7. She's prepared." Catherine laughed. "When did she start planning?" "About 3 hours after you showed up that first night. She told me you were staying. I told her it was complicated. She said love isn't complicated, adults just make it that way." She's not wrong. They sat in comfortable silence. Catherine's phone buzzed. A text from her father, the first communication in 3 months. "Your mother told me about the engagement. Congratulations. We should talk." She showed Dan. He read it, handed the phone back without comment. "I don't know if I'm ready," Catherine said. "You don't have to be, not yet. They'll want to meet you, interrogate you, make sure you're suitable. I'm a widowed single dad who works for his fiancée. I'm probably not their idea of suitable. You're perfect. I'm really not. Perfect for me, then." Dan pulled her closer. They stayed like that until Catherine's eyes grew heavy. She should go home, get proper sleep, maintain some boundaries. But the couch was comfortable. Dan was warm and she was tired of leaving. "Stay," he whispered like he could read her thoughts. "I'm already here. I mean really stay, not the guest room, not temporary." He pulled back to look at her. "Move in, not right away, but soon, when you're ready. Make this home." Catherine thought about her downtown apartment. Sterile and perfect, decorated by professionals, empty of anything that mattered. She'd been sleeping there less and less, making excuses to stay here where Lily's drawings covered the fridge and dinner was chaotic, and love felt like a verb instead of a concept. "I'm ready now," she said. 2 months later, Catherine stood in a small chapel on San Juan Island, wearing a dress that actually felt like hers. Ivory silk, simple cut, no train to trip over. Her hair, loose, minimal makeup. She looked like herself. Margaret adjusted the veil, thin and delicate, nothing like the elaborate lace from the Napa wedding. Nervous, terrified. Good terrified or bad terrified, the best terrified. Catherine touched the small bouquet of wildflowers. "Is that weird? Being scared of something you want? That's how you know it's real. The things worth having are always a little scary." Through the window, Catherine could see the water. Gray-blue under overcast skies. Rain threatened but hadn't started. The island smelled like pine and salt and possibility. 30 people waited in the chapel. Not 300. Just the ones who mattered. Dan's sister and her family. A few close friends from Vertex. The board members who'd stood by her. And in the front row, surprising everyone, including Catherine, her parents. Her father had called 2 weeks ago, asked to walk her down the aisle, said her mother wanted to try again to understand. Catherine had said yes, tentatively protecting herself while leaving the door open. Now, her father stood in the doorway offering his arm. "You look beautiful, sweetheart." Thanks, Dad. I'm sorry for not understanding before, for making you think you had to choose. Catherine squeezed his hand. I'm sorry, too, for shutting you out. Ready. She looked past him to the chapel. Dan waited at the altar in a charcoal suit, Lily beside him in a white dress with purple flowers. The little girl bounced on her toes, barely containing excitement. Yeah, Catherine said. I'm ready. The processional was short. Just 20 steps to transform her life again, but this time towards something instead of away from it. Dan's face when he saw her approaching, the way his eyes filled with tears he didn't bother hiding, made every step feel inevitable. Lily couldn't wait for her cue. She launched forward, threw her arms around Catherine's waist. You look like magic. You look like starlight, Catherine whispered back. The officiant, a friend of Dan's from college, smiled at the crowd. We're here to witness the marriage of Catherine and Daniel, but really, we're here to celebrate a family choosing each other, which is the best kind of family there is. Dan took Catherine's hands. His fingers trembled slightly. I wrote vows, he said. Practiced them 17 times. But standing here, all I can think is thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to choose this, to choose us, when you could have chosen the easier path. Catherine's throat tightened. I promise to stand beside you, Dan continued. Not in front, not behind. To build a life where we're all allowed to be imperfect. Where work matters but doesn't consume us. Where Lily sees that love means partnership. His voice cracked. And to never take for granted that night you showed up at my door and changed everything. Catherine wiped her eyes, took a breath. I've spent my whole life being told what success looks like, she said. Corner office, board seat, stock options, and I achieved all of it. But I was empty, performing a version of myself I thought the world wanted. She looked at Lily, then back at Dan. You showed me that success is having the courage to be real, to want things that don't fit on a resume, to build something that can't be measured in quarterly earnings. She smiled through tears. I promise to never again let fear of failure keep me from reaching for happiness, to show Lily that strength isn't about power, but about vulnerability, and to remind you every day that you're enough exactly as you are. The officiant pronounced them married. Dan pulled her close, kissed her like they were the only two people in existence. Lily wedged between them, creating a family hug that had the whole congregation laughing through tears. The photographer captured the moment. Not perfect, not posed, just real. The reception was held at a restored barn overlooking the water. Fairy lights strung between rafters. Long tables covered in wildflowers. Food served family style, everyone passing dishes, reaching across each other, making it feel like the world's best dinner party instead of a formal event. Catherine's mother approached during appetizers. She looked uncomfortable in the casual setting, but she was trying. The venue is lovely. Thanks for coming, Mom. I almost didn't. Her mother smoothed her dress. Your father convinced me. Said we'd already missed too much. You didn't miss anything yet. We're just getting started. Her mother's eyes filled. I was wrong about so many things. I thought I was protecting you, teaching you to be strong. You did teach me to be strong, just not the way you intended. They hugged. Awkward at first, then genuine. Healing would take time. But time Catherine was learning was something you made for the things that mattered. Dinner was chaotic and perfect. Lily spilled juice on her dress and didn't care. Dan's sister told embarrassing childhood stories. Margaret gave a toast about integrity that had half the room crying. Then Catherine's father stood glass raised. To my daughter, he said, who taught me that true success isn't building empires. It's having the courage to walk away from the wrong ones. And to Dan and Lily, thank you for showing her that family doesn't hold you back. It gives you something worth fighting for. The band started playing. Dan led Catherine onto the makeshift dance floor. Other couples joined them, but Catherine only saw Dan. The way he held her careful and certain. The way he looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd stopped asking. "Any regrets?" he murmured against her hair. Catherine glanced around. Lily teaching board members how to do the chicken dance. Her parents laughing at something Margaret said. The future she'd never dared to imagine unfolding in real time. "Just one." Dan pulled back concerned. "That I waited so long to be brave." He smiled. "You're brave now. That's what counts." They danced until Lily cut in, insisting on standing on Dan's feet while Catherine held both their hands. The three of them swaying to music, connected complete. Later, after the cake and toasts and dancing after Lily fell asleep on a bench and had to be carried to the car after goodbye hugs and promises to visit soon, Catherine and Dan stood on the barn's deck watching the water. Rain started. Gentle at first, then steady. The guests scattered, but Catherine and Dan didn't move. "Should we go inside?" Dan asked. "Not yet." The rain soaked her dress, ruined her hair, washed away the last remnants of makeup. She'd spent $40,000 on a dress she never wore in the Napa wedding. This one cost $800. It would be destroyed by morning. She'd never felt more beautiful. "Catherine Reeves," Dan said, testing the name. "How does it sound? Like coming home?" He kissed her in the rain while their family and friends watched from the windows, smiling at the crazy couple who chose each other despite everything, who chose truth over convenience, who chose love over fear, who chose to build something real in a world that demanded performance. The rain continued falling, washing everything clean, leaving only what was true. And Catherine Morgan, now Catherine Reeves, CEO and wife and mother, stood in it without seeking shelter, because some things were worth getting wet for. Some things were worth everything. 1 year later, Catherine sat on the porch swing of their house on Bainbridge Island watching Dan chase Lily through the sprinklers. The yard was big enough for a garden which they'd planted together in spring. Tomatoes and basil and wildflowers that attracted bees. The house itself was nothing like her old apartment. 100-years-old wood siding that needed paint floors that creaked. Dan had fallen in love with it immediately. Catherine had needed convincing. Now she couldn't imagine living anywhere else. Her laptop sat open beside her quarterly reports, half read. Vertex had posted record profits. The company culture had shifted under her new policies. Mandatory parental leave, flexible hours, remote work options. Other tech companies were copying the model. Several female executives had sent private messages thanking her for showing that vulnerability and strength could coexist, that choosing family didn't mean abandoning ambition. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Former VC titan Tristan Ashford indicted on federal fraud charges. Catherine read the article. The evidence Sarah Chen had provided, combined with the SEC's investigation, had finally caught up with him. 23 counts. Facing serious prison time. She felt no satisfaction, just relief that the shadow had lifted completely. Dan appeared on the porch, soaked from the sprinkler's, hair dripping. He collapsed beside her on the swing, making it rock. "What are you reading?" Tristan got indicted. Dan leaned over to see, read silently, then closed the laptop. "Good, he deserves it." He took her hand. "You okay? I keep thinking about that night, standing in the bridal suite. What if I'd gone through with it? You wouldn't have." "How do you know?" "Because you're the woman who drives to someone's house in a wedding dress at 9 p.m. in the rain." He kissed her knuckles. "You don't do things halfway, Cat. Not even the scary things." Lily ran up the porch steps, tracking water and grass. "Mom, "Dad, can we have ice cream now?" The words still made Catherine's chest tight. The adoption had been finalized 6 months ago, official and legal, but Lily had been calling her mom since the engagement, like she'd known all along. "After dinner," Catherine said. "But I'm hungry now. That's what dinner is for. You sound like a real mom." Lily grinned, then launched herself into Catherine's lap, getting her wet. "A bossy one. Takes one to know one." They ate dinner on the back deck. Grilled salmon Dan had learned to make watching YouTube videos. Lily's contribution was setting the table, which she did with elaborate care, making sure each fork was precisely parallel to the plate. The sun set over the water, pink and orange bleeding into purple. Fairy lights moving across the sound. Catherine had learned the schedule by heart. The 7:15 to Seattle, the 8:30 return. "Mom, can I be excused?" Catherine glanced at Lily's plate. Half the vegetables remained. 3 more bites of broccoli. 2, 4. Lily groaned, but complied, then ran inside to her room. Through the window, Catherine could see her at her desk drawing. Always drawing. Dan started clearing plates. Catherine helped their movements synchronized by routine. A year of shared meals had created rhythm. She washed, he dried. The kitchen window faced the garden, their reflection in the glass side by side. "I got an email today," Catherine said, "from a woman who just graduated business school. She asked for career advice." "What did you tell her?" "I haven't responded yet. I wasn't sure what to say." Dan dried a plate, set it in the cabinet. "Tell her the truth. Which is that success looks different for everyone, that choosing yourself isn't selfish, that the best life is the one you build intentionally, not the one that looks good in photographs." Catherine turned off the water, dried her hands. "When did you get so wise?" "I married up, had to keep pace." They finished the dishes in comfortable silence. Through the window, darkness settled. The reflection became clearer. Catherine studied it. Her face different now. Lines around her eyes from laughing. Gray streaks she'd stopped covering with dye. The expensive haircut grown out into something simpler. She looked older. She looked happier. Inside, Lily called from her room. "Mom, can you come see?" Catherine found her daughter at the desk, new drawings spread out. 3 figures in a kitchen. Windows showing stars. A table set for 3. At the bottom, in careful letters, "My real family." "It's beautiful bug. Can we hang it in your office, the big one downtown? You want it in my CEO office." "Yeah. So when people come for meetings, they know you have a family, that you're not just a boss, you're a mom too." Catherine knelt beside the chair. "You know what, that's a perfect idea." After Lily was in bed, Catherine sat in the small office she'd created in the spare bedroom. Nothing like her Vertex corner office. Just a desk, a chair, a window overlooking the garden. But it was hers. She opened her laptop, pulled up the email from the business school graduate. Started typing. "Dear Maya, you asked for career advice. I'll give you the best I have, though it may not be what you expect. I spent 15 years building a company, sacrificing relationships, health, personal happiness. I thought success meant corner offices and board seats. That love was a distraction. That vulnerability equaled weakness. I was wrong. The most successful thing I've ever done is walk away from a wedding that looked perfect but felt empty. It cost me. Stock prices fell. Board members turned. My family stopped speaking to me. But it gave me something I'd never had. Truth. Authenticity. A life built on what matters instead of what impresses. I'm not saying abandon your ambition. I'm still CEO, still driven, still demanding excellence from my team. But I'm also a wife and mother. I leave work at 6 for family dinner. I take real vacations. I say no to opportunities that would consume my soul. The women who taught me to lead told me I had to choose. Career or family, power or love. They were wrong. You don't have to choose. You just have to be brave enough to build something that honors all of who you are. The biggest risk isn't failing professionally. It's succeeding at a life you don't actually want. Be brave, be honest, be whole. The rest will follow. Best Catherine Morgan Reeves, CEO, Vertex Technologies. She read it over, added her signature, hit send. Through the window she could see Dan in the garden checking the tomatoes by flashlight. He did that every night before bed. A ritual she'd found odd at first, then endearing. She joined him outside. The night air was cool. Rain threatened but hadn't started. The smell of earth and growing things surrounded them. "Everything okay?" she asked. Hornworm on the big plant. Got him. Dan straightened, wiping his hands on his jeans. "You finished that email?" "Yeah." "What did you tell her?" "To be brave." "Good advice." They walked back to the house together. Through the kitchen window, warm light spilled out. Inside, Lily's drawings covered the refrigerator. School photos arranged chronologically. Evidence of life being lived. The empty chair at the table, the one that used to haunt Dan, now held Catherine's work bag. Lily's backpack. The debris of a family in motion. No absence, only presence. Before bed, Catherine checked on Lily one last time. Her daughter slept curled around the stuffed rabbit hair spread across the pillow. One hand clutched a new drawing. Catherine carefully extracted it. 3 figures, a house, a garden, stars overhead, and in careful crayon letters, nothing to hide anymore. Catherine's eyes burned. She placed the drawing on Lily's desk, kissed her daughter's forehead, and backed out quietly. In their bedroom, Dan was already under the covers reading. He looked up as she entered. She asleep, out cold. Catherine slid into bed beside him. She drew another picture. "What's this one? Us, being honest." Dan set his book aside, turned off the lamp, pulled Catherine close. She fit against him perfectly. A year of sleeping beside each other had created a geography they both knew by heart. "Are you happy?" he asked into the darkness. Catherine thought about the question, really thought. A year ago, she would have qualified the answer. Listed the challenges, the complications, the ways it wasn't perfect. Now, she just said, "Yes." "Me too." Rain started, soft against the roof. The sound that had terrified her on her wedding day to Tristan now soothed. She'd learned to hear it differently. Not chaos, but cleansing. Not destruction, but renewal. "Dan, thank you for letting me stay. That first night, every night since." He kissed the top of her head. "You're not staying, Cat. You're home." Sunday morning arrived with rare sunshine. Catherine woke to the smell of pancakes and Lily's off-key singing. She padded downstairs in Dan's old t-shirt and flannel pants. The kitchen was a disaster. Flour on every surface. Lily at the stove with Dan, both wearing matching apron. A stack of slightly burned pancakes on the counter. "Morning, sleepyhead," Dan said. "Coffee's ready." Catherine poured a cup, leaned against the counter, watched her husband and daughter navigate the kitchen with practiced teamwork. Lily cracked eggs with intense concentration. Dan caught the shells before they hit the bowl. "Can we go to the beach today?" Lily asked. "All 3 of us. I have work." Catherine started, then stopped herself. The work could wait. It would always be there. But Lily's childhood wouldn't. Actually, yes. Let's go to the beach. They spent the afternoon at Fort Ward Park. Lily collected shells and rocks, creating elaborate arrangements on a piece of driftwood. Dan skipped stones across the water, teaching Catherine the wrist motion. She was terrible at it. "You're thinking too hard," he said. Just feel it. I'm a CEO. I think everything too hard. Former CEO behavior. Current Catherine just lets go. She tried again. The stone skipped once, twice, then sank. Better. Lily ran over pockets full of treasures. Look what I found. This one looks like a heart. This one's a star. This one's just pretty. She laid them out on Catherine's palm. Small and ordinary and perfect. What are you going to do with them? Catherine asked. Keep them forever, to remember this day. That night, after Lily was asleep, after the dishes were washed and the house tidied, Catherine and Dan sat at the kitchen table. Rain had started again. Steady and rhythmic. The windows fogged from cooking dinner. Catherine had brought Lily's newest drawing downstairs, the one that said nothing to hide anymore. She placed it on the table between them. Do you ever miss it? Dan asked. Your old life, the simplicity of just being CEO. God, no, that life was empty. But easier. Easier isn't better. Catherine traced the crayon lines of the drawing. I spent 38 years being what everyone else wanted. Perfect daughter, perfect student, perfect CEO. I was dying inside and didn't even know it. She looked up at him. You saved me by letting me save myself. I didn't do anything. You saw me, the real me, and you didn't run. Dan reached across the table, took her hand. Running never crossed my mind. They sat like that while rain drummed the roof. The kitchen was warm, the windows fogged, their reflection visible in the glass but soft, indistinct, not the sharp, harsh clarity of her old office, something gentler. I need to tell you something, Catherine said. Dan's expression shifted, concerned. Margaret's retiring. She offered me her board seat, chair position. Cat, that's amazing. It means more responsibility, more time commitment, more visibility. Okay. I told her I'd think about it. Talk to you first. Why, it's your career. Because it affects all of us. More late nights, more travel, less time here. She squeezed his hand. I won't take it if you don't want me to. Dan was quiet for a moment. Do you want it? Part of me does. The part that still loves the challenge. That wants to push Vertex forward. And the other part wants to be here, with you and Lily, not missing bedtimes and beach days. So do both. It's not that simple, isn't it? Dan leaned forward. You've spent a year proving you can have a career and a family. That the choice everyone said you had to make was bullshit. Why stop now? Because I don't want to mess this up. You won't. You know why. He gestured around the kitchen. The mess from dinner. Lily's drawings on the fridge. The evidence of imperfect, beautiful life. Because you're not doing it alone anymore. We're a team. You take the chair position. I pick up more at home. We figure it out together. Catherine felt something unclench in her chest. The fear she'd been carrying. That success in one area meant failure in another. That she still had to choose. You're sure? I'm sure. He smiled. Besides, Lily's going to lose her mind when she finds out her mom is chair of the board. She'll want to make business cards. Catherine laughed. She probably will. They cleared the table together. Catherine washed while Dan dried, their reflection in the window above the sink. Two people side by side moving in rhythm. Outside, rain continued. Inside, warmth and light and belonging. Later, lying in bed, Catherine listened to the house settle. Dan's breathing beside her. Lily's gentle snoring from down the hall. The rain against the windows. The creak of old wood. All the sounds of home. She thought about the woman she'd been, standing in that bridal suite in Napa, terrified and trapped and desperate for something she couldn't name. She'd needed to blow up her life to find it. Needed to lose everything to gain what mattered. No regrets. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya, the business school graduate. "Thank you for your honesty. I needed to hear that. Can I ask you something else?" Catherine typed back. "Of course. How did you know that it was time to choose differently?" Catherine stared at the question, thought about wedding dresses and rain and doorsteps, about a little girl who drew families before they existed, about a man who saw her and didn't run. She typed, "I stopped being able to breathe, and then I met someone who reminded me how." The response came quickly. "That's beautiful." It's true. The best things usually are. Catherine set her phone down, rolled over to face Dan. He was asleep, face peaceful. She studied him in the dim light. The man who'd let her into his life when she showed up desperate and soaking, who'd stood beside her through scandal and scrutiny, who'd chosen her every day since. She touched his face gently. He stirred, but didn't wake. "Thank you," she whispered. The next morning was Monday. Back to work. Catherine dressed in her professional armor, blazer and slacks, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back, the CEO version. But when she looked in the mirror, she didn't see a performance anymore. Just herself. Integrated, whole. Lily appeared in the doorway, already dressed for school. "Can I ride with you today? To Seattle?" "You'll be late for school. Dad said he'd drive me after. I want to see your office, put up my drawing." Catherine glanced at Dan. He shrugged, smiled. "Okay, let's do it." They took the ferry together. Lily pressed her face to the window watching Seattle grow closer. The city Catherine had claimed as hers 8 years ago. Still beautiful. Still home. At Vertex, employees did double takes seeing Catherine arrive with a child, but no one questioned it. A year of integration had normalized what once seemed scandalous. In her office, Catherine let Lily choose where to hang the drawing. The girl circled the space considering angles and light, finally pointed to the wall directly across from Catherine's desk. "There, so when you're working you can look up and remember." "Remember what? That you're not just a boss. You're my mom too." Catherine hung the drawing carefully, stepped back to examine it. 3 figures in a kitchen, windows showing stars. "My real family" in crayon. Perfect. Her assistant knocked. "Ms. Morgan, the board's ready for you." "Be right there." Catherine turned to Lily. "Dad's picking you up in 20 minutes. Stay here, okay?" "Can I sit at your desk?" "Sure. Just don't approve any budgets." Lily giggled, climbed into the CEO chair, feet dangling, spun in a circle. The board meeting was routine. Quarterly reviews, strategic planning. Margaret announced her retirement officially. Nominated Catherine for chair. The vote was unanimous, after Margaret pulled Catherine aside. "You've come a long way. I had a good teacher. I taught you business. You taught yourself how to live." Margaret smiled. "Don't lose that, the living part, no matter how high you climb." "I won't. I have people who won't let me." Back in her office, Lily was at the desk drawing on Catherine's notepad. She'd created a new picture, the Vertex building with a heart on top. "For your new job," she explained. "So, the building has feelings." Catherine picked up the drawing, added it to the wall beside the family picture. "You know what I think every building needs feelings." They rode the ferry back together. Lily fell asleep against Catherine's shoulder. The weight of her warm and trusting was the best feeling in the world. That evening, Catherine got home to find Dan making spaghetti. Lily's job was tearing lettuce for salad. Catherine changed out of her work clothes, joined them in the kitchen. They moved around each other easily. A choreography learned through repetition. Catherine set the table. 3 plates, 3 forks, 3 chairs, all filled. They ate on the back deck despite the cold, bundled in sweaters watching the sunset paint the water. Lily talked about her day, a boy in her class who ate paste, the science project on volcanoes, the way her teacher pronounced library wrong, normal, mundane, perfect. After dinner, Lily asked to play a board game. They chose Monopoly, which took 2 hours and ended with Lily owning everything and Dan and Catherine bankrupt. "You're ruthless," Dan told his daughter. "I learned from Mom. She's a CEO. Former CEO," Catherine corrected. "Now I'm chair." "What's the difference?" "More meetings. Less fun." "Then why do it?" Catherine considered the question. Why did she do it? Not for money, not for power, not even for legacy. "Because I love building things," she said finally. "And because showing up matters. Being present for the work you care about matters. Like being present for family. Exactly like that." After Lily went to bed, Catherine and Dan cleaned up. The routine familiar, comforting. When the kitchen was spotless, they stood at the sink looking out the window. Rain had started again. Gentle, persistent. The garden glistened. "You never did tell me," Dan said, "why you came to my house that night." "What do you mean I told you I couldn't marry Tristan? But why my house? You could have gone anywhere, hotel, friend's place, your parents." Catherine thought about it. The question she'd never fully answered. "Because you were the only real thing in my life," she said slowly. "Everyone else saw the CEO, the board seat, the stock options. You saw me, the person underneath all that. I barely knew you. You knew me better than anyone." She turned to face him. "That night at the company retreat, when you helped those interns, you looked at me like I was a person, not a walking quarterly report, just Catherine. You were always just Catherine to me. I know. That's why I came." They stood in the quiet kitchen, rain drumming the roof, the dishwasher humming, the house settling around them. "I'm glad you did," Dan said. "Come to my door." "Me too. Even though it was crazy, especially because it was crazy." He kissed her, soft and certain. A year of kisses had made them experts in each other. When they pulled apart, Catherine rested her forehead against his. "I love this life," she whispered. "Our messy, imperfect, beautiful life. It's pretty great, isn't it? It's everything." They turned off the lights, checked on Lily one last time. The little girl slept sprawled across her bed, stuffed rabbit, abandoned on the floor. Catherine picked it up, tucked it beside her daughter. In their bedroom, Catherine stood at the window, looking out at the dark garden, the rain, the life they'd built here. No glass walls separating her from the world, no barriers, just windows showing truth. Dan appeared behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. They stood like that, watching the rain together. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How different everything is. A year ago, I was planning a wedding I didn't want, living a life I didn't recognize, playing a part. And now I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." They got into bed. Dan turned off the light. Catherine curled against him, listening to his heartbeat, steady and strong. Outside, rain continued. Inside, 3 people slept. A family built on truth instead of convenience, on love instead of strategy. Catherine's last thought before sleep was simple. She was home, not in a building, not in a city, not in a job title or stock portfolio. In this, the messy kitchen and sleeping child and man beside her, the drawings on the fridge and burned pancakes and imperfect, beautiful, ordinary everything. This was success. This was enough. This was home. And for the first time in her life, Catherine Morgan Reeves wasn't hiding, wasn't performing, wasn't pretending to be anything other than exactly who she was. The rain drummed the windows. The house creaked and settled, and inside in the warm darkness, a family slept. All the chairs filled, all the windows clear, all the truth finally told. Nothing left to hide, everything worth keeping.